The fall Sophia Lynn traced her finger along the edge of the kitchen counter in their Palo Alto home, the marble cool against her skin. Outside, California sunshine bathed the garden she'd planted last spring, but inside, the atmosphere was anything but warm. "I can't believe you're being so selfish about this," Nathan Reed said, his voice carrying that edge she'd grown familiar with these past months. He loosened his tie, freshly promoted to VP of Development at his tech firm. "The Tokyo expansion is my chance, Sophia. My chance." "I'm not asking you to skip the trip," Sophia said softly, one hand instinctively resting on her barely visible 12-week bump. "I'm only asking if we could postpone it until after the first trimester. The doctor said a lot of things," Nathan interrupted, checking his watch. "But what about what my CEO is saying? What about the promotion I've worked 3 years for?" Sophia bit her lip. 3 years ago, she'd been the rising star at Innovatech, their algorithms praised throughout Silicon Valley. Then Nathan's career had hit a rough patch, and she'd agreed, that one of them needed stability at home. Her project had just been acquired. The timing seemed right to step back. Temporary, he'd promised. Yet temporary had stretched into permanent. Her brilliant mind now focused on managing their home, supporting his networking events, hosting dinners for his colleagues, and now finally creating the family they'd dreamed of. "You know what? I didn't want to say this." Nathan ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair. "But this pregnancy, the timing couldn't be worse." The words struck Sophia like physical blows. She steadied herself against the counter. "You knew we were trying," she whispered. "Trying someday. Not when I'm about to break into international markets." He grabbed his jacket from the chair. "I've got a dinner with the executive team. Don't wait up." The door closed with a decisive click, leaving Sophia alone with the meal she'd prepared growing cold on the table. She sank into a chair, tears blurring her vision. 2 weeks later, Nathan left for Tokyo. 3 days into his trip, at exactly 14 weeks pregnant, Sophia woke to searing pain and sheets stained crimson. Her calls to Nathan went unanswered. Important meetings, he later explained. The hospital halls were sterile and unforgiving. The doctor's words clinical but kind. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Reed. There was nothing you could have done." She came home to an empty house and Nathan's text, closing the deal. "Extending trip another week. Great news!" When he finally returned, tanned and triumphant, Sophia was sitting in their living room, surrounded by half-packed boxes. "What's all this?" he asked, dropping his luggage. "I lost the baby," she said simply, her voice hollow from weeks of tears. Nathan's face fell, but only briefly. "Oh, That's terrible. But maybe it's for the best right now, with everything happening at work." Sophia looked at him, really looked at the man she'd loved since graduate school, and saw a stranger. "I'm leaving," she said. "Don't be dramatic," Nathan scoffed. "Where would you even go? What would you do? Your career has been on pause for years." The truth in his cruel words stung, but Sophia stood anyway, lifting a small suitcase. "I don't know yet, but I know I deserve more than this." As she walked toward the door, Nathan called after her, panic finally seeping into his voice. "Sophia, wait!" "We can work this out. We can try again, later, when the timing is right." She paused, hand on the doorknob, and looked back at their beautiful home, at the life she'd poured herself into. "The timing will never be right for us, Nathan." "I see that now." The door closed behind her with a soft click, the sound of one chapter ending, and somewhere far ahead, another waiting to begin. Ashes to ideas. The one-bedroom apartment in Oakland was a far cry from the Palo Alto estate Sophia had left behind. Paint peeled in the corners, and the radiator clanked through winter nights. But it was hers, a small sanctuary purchased with the modest settlement from her divorce and the last of her savings. 6 months had passed since she'd walked out of Nathan's life. 6 months of rebuilding from ashes, of crying herself to sleep, of questioning every decision. But today felt different, as Sophia sat cross-legged on her living room floor, surrounded by notes, sketches, and her old coding journals. "Back to basics," she murmured, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear. Before her career hiatus, Sophia had been developing an algorithm that could predict emotional responses to digital content. Nathan had dismissed it as too niche. But sitting here now, Sophia saw its potential with fresh eyes. Her phone buzzed. May, her former colleague from Innovatech. "How's my favorite coding genius?" May's voice was warm through the speaker. "Hardly a genius these days," Sophia replied, glancing at her scattered notes. "More like a rusting machine trying to remember how it works." "Nonsense. Once brilliant, always brilliant. You just need to knock the dust off." May paused. "Listen, there's a tech meetup next Thursday at Berkeley. Nothing fancy, just some talks and networking. Come with me?" Sophia hesitated. The thought of mingling, of potentially running into industry people who knew Nathan made her stomach twist. "I don't know, May." "Sophia Lynn, you've been hiding long enough. The world is poorer without your brain in it." After hanging up, Sophia wandered to her tiny balcony overlooking the street below. A group of women walked by, laughing together, supporting each other. Something clicked in her mind. That night she couldn't sleep. By dawn, her walls were covered with sticky notes, and her laptop hummed with activity for the first time in years. What if her emotional response algorithm could be tailored specifically for women's mental health? What if it could create safe digital spaces for women rebuilding their lives after trauma, whether from relationships, pregnancy loss, workplace discrimination? What if technology could facilitate healing in a way traditional methods couldn't reach? She named it Phoenix, a platform that would use AI to connect women with personalized resources, communities, and therapeutic tools based on their emotional state and experiences. For weeks, Sophia worked feverishly, coding until her fingers cramped. She attended May's meetup, then another, gradually reconnecting with the tech world. Some nights, doubt crept in. Who was she to start over at 34? But each morning, she returned to Phoenix, to the code that felt increasingly like her rebirth. 3 months later, Sophia stood outside a nondescript office building in San Francisco, clutching her presentation materials. Inside waited representatives from 5 small investment firms, the only ones who'd agreed to hear her pitch. "You've got this," May texted. "Remember why you're doing it." 4 rejections followed. "Too emotional. Not scalable. Market too specific." Words that stung but didn't break her. The 5th investor, a woman named Diane Porter, leaned forward during Sophia's demonstration of the prototype. "This is personal for you," she stated rather than asked. Sophia hesitated, then nodded. "Yes. Good," Diane said simply. "The best innovations always are." The seed funding wasn't much, enough for a small office and 2 developers, but it was a beginning. Phoenix took flight, first as a simple app connecting women to resources, then evolving into a comprehensive platform offering everything from AI-driven therapy companions to networking tools for women re-entering the workforce. On the 1-year anniversary of her miscarriage, Sophia stood in her new office overlooking the bay. Where once there had been only pain, now there was purpose. Her phone chimed with a message, Diane informing her that a major venture capital firm had requested a meeting. "They're particularly interested in your algorithm's applications," Diane wrote. "Their representative, Gabriel Winters, will be in touch." Sophia set down her phone, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. From somewhere within her came a feeling she hadn't experienced in years, hope, spreading its wings, preparing to soar. The ascent Gabriel Winters didn't fit Sophia's image of a venture capitalist. Where she expected slick confidence, she found thoughtful reserve. Where she anticipated aggressive questioning, he offered careful attention. Tall, with kind eyes behind horn-rimmed glasses, he studied Phoenix's metrics with genuine interest. "Your user retention is remarkable," he said, looking up from his tablet during their 3rd meeting. "Especially considering you've done minimal marketing." "Word of mouth," Sophia explained. "Women tell other women when something works." They sat in her modest office, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the room. Gabriel nodded, making another note. "Cornerstone Ventures typically invests in later-stage companies," he continued. "But your platform—" He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. It fills a gap most of us in tech haven't even acknowledged exists. 2 weeks later, Cornerstone offered Phoenix $5 million in Series A funding, enough to scale operations, hire a proper team, and move to offices in downtown San Francisco. With the investment came Gabriel, joining Phoenix's board as Cornerstone's representative. The next 18 months passed in a blur of growth and challenges. Phoenix expanded into wellness wearables that monitored emotional health markers, then pioneered virtual reality therapy spaces. User numbers climbed into the millions. Sophia's team grew from 3 to 30, then to over 100. Through it all, Gabriel remained a steady presence. Unlike other investors who demanded constant updates and pushed for faster returns, he seemed to understand Phoenix's mission on a deeper level. "My sister," he explained one evening as they shared takeout in Sophia's office, long after everyone else had gone home. "She went through something similar to what you did. Different circumstances, same devastation?" Sophia looked up from her noodles, surprised by his candor. "Is she okay now?" Gabriel's smile was gentle. "She is." She would have benefited from something like Phoenix. Their late working dinners became a regular occurrence. Beneath the investor-founder relationship, something else blossomed. A friendship built on mutual respect. Then something warmer that neither rushed to define. On Phoenix's 3rd anniversary, the company's valuation hit $800 million. Major wellness brands and healthcare providers partnered with them. Features in Forbes and Bloomberg profiled Sophia as tech's most empathetic innovator. That night, the team celebrated at an upscale restaurant overlooking the city. As speeches and toasts flowed, Sophia slipped outside to the terrace. Overwhelmed by how far they'd come, Gabriel found her there, offering his jacket against the evening chill. "Hiding from your own success?" he asked, leaning against the railing beside her. "Just catching my breath," she replied. "Sometimes I still feel like that woman in the Oakland apartment, covered in sticky notes and doubt." "I wish I'd known you then," Gabriel said quietly. Sophia turned to him, really seeing the man who'd believed in her vision when others hadn't. "Why?" "Because I would have told you then what I'm certain of now. You were always going to rise, Sophia. With or without Cornerstone's money. With or without anyone's approval." The space between them seemed to shrink, charged with unspoken feelings. "Gabriel, she began. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining. "I know, the timing isn't right. There's too much at stake professionally." But instead of pulling away, Sophia stepped closer. "I've learned something important these past few years. The timing is never perfect. We just decide what matters enough to make time for." Their first kiss was gentle, questioning, then deepened with certainty. When they parted, the city lights twinkled below like stars fallen to earth, witnesses to a new beginning. 3 months later, Phoenix went public. The IPO exceeded all expectations, pushing the company's valuation past the billion-dollar mark. Overnight, Sophia became one of Silicon Valley's newest billionaires, and one of the few women to achieve that status through a company focused on women's well-being. As she rang the opening bell at the stock exchange, Gabriel watched from the sidelines, his proud smile worth more to her than all the numbers flashing on the screens above. Worlds collide. The Global Technology Summit was the industry's premier event. 3 days of innovation showcases, panel discussions, and networking among tech's elite. This year's theme, Technology for Human Thriving, had practically demanded Phoenix's presence. Sophia adjusted her earpiece as she prepared to take the main stage. 4 years had transformed her from a broken-hearted woman with nothing into a CEO whose company had redefined the intersection of technology and emotional well-being. 5 minutes. "Ms. Lin," a staff member called. Gabriel appeared at her side, professional in public as always, though the light in his eyes when he looked at her spoke volumes. "Ready to inspire a few thousand people?" he asked. She nodded, smoothing her tailored blazer. "As I'll ever be." The moderator's voice boomed through the hall. "Please welcome our next panel, The Future of Empathetic Technology, featuring Sophia Lin, CEO of Phoenix Technologies." As Sophia walked onto the brightly lit stage, A figure in the second row caught her eye, a face she hadn't seen in years, yet would know anywhere. Nathan Reed, watching her with an expression of disbelief. Her step faltered only briefly before muscle memory and professionalism carried her forward. For the next hour, she discussed Phoenix's mission, fielded questions and shared insights, all while acutely aware of her ex-husband's presence. After the panel, Gabriel squeezed her hand backstage. "You were brilliant." "Nathan's here," she said quietly. Understanding dawned in Gabriel's eyes. "Do you want to leave early?" "We could—" "No," Sophia interrupted, finding strength in his concern. "I'm not hiding anymore." The summit's evening reception buzzed with conversation and clinked glasses. Sophia circulated confidently among investors and peers, Gabriel occasionally at her side, but giving her space to shine. Independently, she was discussing expansion plans with a healthcare executive when she sensed someone approach from behind. Sophia, she turned to face Nathan, noting the years had added lines around his eyes and gray at his temples. His smile was the same, charming with an edge of calculation. "Nathan, what a surprise, is it?" He gestured around the opulent venue. "You've certainly earned your place here. Everyone's talking about Phoenix." "Thank you," she replied evenly. An awkward silence stretched between them until Nathan cleared his throat. "I tried reaching out, after I saw the Forbes piece." "I know," Sophia acknowledged. Her assistant had flagged his emails, filed away unread. Nathan leaned closer, lowering his voice. "I always knew you were brilliant, Soph. Even back when—" "No," she interrupted, the old nickname like sandpaper against her ears. "You didn't know. That's the thing, Nathan. You never really saw me." His facade cracked slightly. "That's not fair. We were young, ambitious." "So was I," Sophia said simply. "How's Tokyo?" she added, changing the subject. Nathan's expression tightened. "The expansion didn't work out as planned. I'm with a smaller firm now." Before Sophia could respond, Gabriel approached, offering her a glass of sparkling water. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, though his tone suggested he wasn't sorry at all. "Gabriel Winters," he introduced himself, extending a hand to Nathan. "Cornerstone Ventures, Nathan Reed," came the clipped reply as they shook hands. His eyes darted between them, noting their easy proximity. "Sophia and I go way back." "Yes, I'm aware," Gabriel replied calmly. The implication hung in the air. Gabriel knew everything and stood beside her anyway. Nathan's smile grew strained. "Well, I should circulate. Perhaps we could catch up properly sometime, Sophia. For old time's sake." "I don't think so, Nathan," she said gently. "Some chapters are better left closed." As Nathan walked away, shoulders stiff with wounded pride, Sophia felt no triumph, no vindication. Only a quiet certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be. Later that night, wrapped in Gabriel's arms in their hotel suite, she confessed, "I thought seeing him would feel more significant somehow." Gabriel traced patterns on her bare shoulder. And instead it was like looking at an old photograph of someone else's life. She nestled closer to his warmth. "He has no power over who I am now. And who is that?" Gabriel asked, his voice a soft rumble against her cheek. Sophia smiled in the darkness. "Someone who's finally writing her own story." Beyond regret, the Phoenix Foundation launched on a crisp autumn morning, 5 years to the day since Sophia had walked away from her marriage. Housed in a renovated building in downtown Oakland, not far from her first small apartment, the Foundation's mission was to provide technology, education, and business grants to women, rebuilding their lives after personal trauma. "This isn't about charity," Sophia explained to the assembled crowd at the ribbon-cutting ceremony. "It's about opportunity, about seeing potential where others see only damage." Among the Foundation's first initiatives was a partnership with women's shelters to provide coding training and job placement. Another program offered childcare stipends for single mothers pursuing tech certifications. Gabriel stood in the audience, watching Sophia speak with quiet pride. Their relationship, private for so long, had become public when Phoenix's success was secure enough that no one could attribute it to anything but Sophia's own brilliance. Now they shared a home overlooking the bay, a life intertwined both personally and professionally. After the ceremony, as the crowd mingled over refreshments, Sophia's assistant approached with a small envelope. "This was left at reception," she said. Security checked it. Inside was a business card, Nathan Reed, Innovation Consultant, with a handwritten note on the back. "Congratulations. I was wrong about everything." And Sophia slipped the card into her pocket without comment, continuing her conversations with donors and community partners. Only later, walking through the Foundation's new computer lab, did she pause to reflect on Nathan's message. 6 months earlier, she'd heard through industry circles that his latest venture had failed. Rumor had it he'd been difficult to work with, taking credit for others' ideas, unwilling to adapt. The Nathan she'd known couldn't bend without breaking. Gabriel found her there, contemplating the rows of empty workstations that would soon change women's lives. "Penny for your thoughts?" he asked, lacing his fingers through hers. She showed him Nathan's card. "He left this earlier." Gabriel read it silently, then looked at her. "Does it matter to you? His acknowledgement?" "No," Sophia realized, surprised at the truth of it. "Not anymore." That evening, they hosted a small dinner at home for Phoenix's original team, May, Diane, and the first developers who'd believed in the vision. As laughter and conversation flowed around their table, Sophia's phone chimed with a news alert. Phoenix announces revolutionary mental health partnership with major hospital network. The company she'd founded had taken on a life beyond her, growing in directions she hadn't imagined, helping women she would never meet. Later, as their guests departed and darkness settled over the city, Gabriel led Sophia onto their terrace. The night was clear, stars visible despite the urban glow. "I have something for you," he said, producing a small velvet box. "Not because of today's success, but because of who you are every day." Inside wasn't the diamond she half expected, but a delicate gold phoenix pendant, wings spread in eternal flight. "It's beautiful," she whispered as he fastened it around her neck. "There's something else," Gabriel said, his voice suddenly nervous. From his pocket came a second, smaller box. This one did hold a ring, elegant, distinctive, perfectly her. "If you want it," he added. Sophia looked up at the man who'd seen her strength when she'd still been discovering it herself. "I do want it. I want everything with you." As they sealed their promise with a kiss, Sophia's thoughts drifted briefly to the journey that had led here, the pain, the loss, the rebuilding. She had risen from those ashes not to make Nathan regret, but to create something meaningful from her suffering. Her success wasn't his worst regret. It was her greatest triumph. And this love, this life she'd built, it belonged entirely to her, shaped by her choices, her courage, her heart. The phoenix pendant rested warm against her skin, a reminder that sometimes we must burn to become who we're meant to be. And sometimes, beyond the burning, we find not just resurrection, but a joy we never dared imagine possible.